Well, hello, my kindred spirits. How in the world are you doing today? I hope that every one of you are doing great, and I hope that wherever you're watching from, springtime has sprung, because it certainly has here in the Southeast, and I love it. In today's video, I wanted to share a few storybooks with you, and then I'm going to read to you a fairy tale from this old book that I've read to you once before. It's an old book of fairy tales that was mine when I was a little bitty girl. And before we read Thumbelina, and so I'm going to read you another story today that I think you'll enjoy. But I wanted to show you a few of the books in my collection right now. We just had part of our house painted, and so that meant I had to take out all of my books from the bookshelves and cull a few of them and then put them back in place. And as I was putting them back in place, I was looking over some of them, and I wanted to show some of them to you. There are so many to show, but these are just some that I pulled out. And as many of you know, we homeschooled all three of our children from kindergarten to college, and we had lots and lots of books in our home. We still have lots and lots of books in our home, and I think that reading is indeed fundamental. And I also think that if you can get an older book to read to your children, those are the best. The classics, or even if it's not a classic, just some of the old books written before 1970 or 78 and back before that. Those are some of the best books to me, and that's what is mainly in our collection of things that we've kept. But these are a few books that I love, and they're by an author named Elsa Beskow. I believe that's how you pronounce her name, Beskow. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that she was Swedish. Let me see if there's a little place in here. It says, let's see, I'm not seeing where she was. No, it's Belgium. I think she was from Belgium, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong about that. But what's so neat about these? First of all, the stories are very sweet. The illustrations are even better. But they're now in the public domain, because I believe if a book is over 75 years old, it can go into the public domain. So you can get a lot of these pictures. If you didn't want to buy the books, which you should buy the books, especially if you have little children, but you can look online, places like Internet Archive and the New York Public Library. Even the New York Public Library has scanned some of these images, and they are extraordinary to me. I'm a big kid at heart anyway, and anytime I can sit and look at something like this for just a few minutes, it just takes you back to a sweet, simple time in life, whether it be your own childhood or maybe the childhoods, if you're like me and your kids are grown, the childhood of your children. It's, I don't live in the past, but it's fun to sometimes see things like this and then go back and remember in the things that have happened in the past. And this one's called the Flowers Festival. And I just love, because you see all these flowers have come to life. And in my imagination, when I was a kid, I would spend hours and hours outdoors, and I would find little flowers, and in my imagination, those flowers were alive. Well, alive, they are alive, but I mean, I would give them personalities. And so that's why I think it is so vitally important, little mamas, if you're listening to me right now, get those babies outside and keep those screens away from them as much as possible. Read to them as much as possible, because when a child's imagination is left to just flow with the help of good stories like this and good books that kind of are the catalyst for things, it is It's so, so wonderful, and I cannot stress that enough. I'd love to get my kids on here someday and have them talk to you about it, because it's so wonderful. This book is called Around the Year, and this is another picture book by Elsa Beskow. And like, for instance, she has this little cantaloupe, and it's got a smile on his face, and she has all these beautiful, she has some poetry in here about the days of the week and the hours and each month. And her illustrations remind me a lot of Tasha Tudor's, and also of a little bit of Beatrix Potter as well. So see those little children, that looks like Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. Do you remember that nursery rhyme, Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod? And I just can't get enough of them. They're just so simple and so sweet. And if you have children, I would highly suggest you find these books. I bought these on Amazon years ago. And then here's another one. Speaking of Tasha Tudor, if you're not familiar with her, I would encourage you to look her up. In fact, I'm going to reach up here right quick, and I have multiple books by her, which I can't find at this moment, but we'll do that another time. This is one of her books. It's called the Tasha Tudor Christmas Book, Take Joy. And let me see if I can see some of her colored illustrations in here. You can kind of see how I think Tasha Tudor's children have a lot more detail, but they're very similar in the method of making the pictures. But Tasha Tudor, I first became acquainted with her through the Victoria magazine back in the late 80s. And they did a feature on her, and I was intrigued by her because of the life that she lived, but especially so because she illustrated one of my favorite books of all time, The Secret Garden. And I knew I had seen that name before when I saw the feature of her in the Victoria magazine. And so anyway, it was a thrill to me to see her life story and then learn more about her. And I have several Tasha Tudor books somewhere around here, and someday I'll find them and show them to you if you'd be interested in that, because they are just so fun. But as I was saying, this is an old book, and it's called A Tale of Easter by Tasha Tudor. And you can see her little daffodils that she painted here. And this is just an old discarded library book, but you can see her little illustrations there, and little girl sleeping, and then a washing pot and some soap, and a little girl and a deer and an owl. And it's a good, sweet little book about Easter time. So thank you so much for letting me show you those, because I really do love all of those books. And before we get started, because after I read this, I'll stop talking and then I'll turn the video off. So if you're listening to this while you're trying to go to sleep, you can just gentle off into dreamland after this story. But I also am going to take you on some field trips very soon. Charlotte is full of some of the most amazing little shops and people and businesses and historic sites, and I love to visit them, and I think that y'all would like to see them too. And so I'm going to take you on some field trips very soon, and I think you're really going to enjoy seeing the places. And then if you live here or live close by anyway, even better, because you can go visit them too. And then yesterday, my son Wesley, our middle son, the one who goes to App State, was with me. He's on spring break right now, and we went up to Charlotte and ran around and did a few things and had lunch, and then he found a new place to go to, and so I'm going to show that place to you too. So I can't wait. So stay tuned on some of those videos. And then one last thing before we start reading. Some of the videos that I put up a couple of weeks ago with the butternut wisdom are, I understand they are much louder than what you're accustomed to because they were made several years ago on a different platform. And so I wanted to let you know that again, if you see a butternut wisdom video, it may not be ASMR as far as my soft-spoken voice. So if you see that, you may want to skip off of that. I do have about 4 more videos that I want to put up for you. One is candle making, sewing, another jam making video, and a soap making video. So please know that if you see those butternut wisdom videos, they are not going to be soft-spoken as what you're used to. So I want to let you know that. So, all right, so let's get started. This is the story of Rumpelstiltskin. There was once a poor miller who had a daughter. One day he had to go inside the king's palace on business. He was so pleased at this honor that he tried to make himself into somebody much more important than he really was. He told the king that he had a beautiful daughter who could spin gold out of straw. What? You may bring her to see me, the king told the miller, who was already beginning to regret his boasting. Uh-oh. I would like her to do some of this wonderful spinning for me. The next day, the frightened miller took his poor daughter to visit the king. The king was delighted to see that she was indeed beautiful. He led the girl into a small room, and when he opened the door, she saw the room was full from floor to ceiling with straw. The king pointed to the spinning wheel. Set to work and spin until dawn, he told the poor girl. The miller's daughter had no idea how to spin straw into gold, and all she could do was sit and weep. Suddenly, the door opened wide, and in peeped a tiny man. Why are you crying? He asked. I must spin all this straw into gold by dawn, she wept, and I don't know how to do it. Don't worry about that, cried the little man. I'll help you, but first, what will you give me if I do? I'll give you my ring, said the girl. She gave it to him. Then he sat down at the spinning wheel. It began to turn and twist. The little man fed straw onto the whirling bobbin, and the more he put there, the more golden coins fell to the floor. When dawn came, there was no straw left, and the room was full of gold. When the king came home to see the girl, he could hardly believe his eyes. He was so pleased that he had another room prepared. This time it was an even bigger room, and there was still more straw in it. Spin more gold for me, my dear, cried the king. He shut the door, leaving the poor girl alone with the straw and the spinning wheel. There's the little man. You see him? She did not know what she was going to do without the little man's help and began to cry. The door opened a crack, and he peeped around at her once more. What will you give me this time if I spin the straw into gold for you? He cried. I'll give you my necklace, cried the girl happily. The little man took the necklace. Then he sat down at the spinning wheel. Whir, twist, and twirl went the wheel. The bobbin caught the straw and cast it out again in the shape of hundreds of golden coins, just as he had done before. When dawn broke, all the straw had gone, and the room was full of glittering gold. This time the king was so overjoyed that he had still a larger room filled with straw, which was tightly stacked from floor to ceiling. If you spin all this straw into gold, I will make you my queen, he cried to the miller's daughter. The girl knew she could not do it without the little man's help, and she waited hopefully for him to appear. Sure enough, he came. What will you give me this time if I spin the straw into gold? He asked. Alas, I have nothing to give, wailed the girl. Then promise me that when you are queen, you will give me your first son, demanded the little man. The girl could do nothing else but promise, and at once the little man seated himself at the spinning wheel and began to spin. The wheel whirred until the room was full of gold. Then the sun shone in through the window, and the little man went away. The rich king kept his promise, and he made the miller's daughter his queen. A year later, a son was born to the queen, and she was so happy that she forgot all about the little man and her promise to him until one day he appeared in her room and pointed to her baby. The queen begged him not to take anything, begged him to take anything except her baby. And as he felt rather sorry for her, he told her that if she could guess his name within 3 days, she could keep her son. The queen tried all the names she knew, but she could not guess the little man's name, and he went away. He came the next day, and she tried with hundreds more, but the little man's name was not one of them. Before the 3rd day dawned, the poor queen sent a messenger all over the land to bring back all the strange names he could find, but there were none left. But I did see one strange thing, he told the queen. I was passing this little house with a tiny man dancing and jumping around a fire burning in front of it. He was singing a song, and this is what he sang. Tomorrow I brew, today I bake, and then the child away I take. For little deems my royal dame, that Rumpelstiltskin is my name. Rumpelstiltskin. He looks kind of mean, but he did help her. The queen was delighted to hear the strange name and was very happy when the little man came next time. She waited for him to speak before she asked him about it, and teased him a little before she said the name her messenger told her. Now, dear lady, what is my name? Asked her visitor. Is it Harry? She asked. No, laughed the little man. Is your name Conrad? No, cried the little man. Is your name Timothy? No, 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 shouted the little man. Then your name is Rumpelstiltskin, said the queen. Some witch told you that, some witch told you that, cried the little man, and he was so angry that he stamped his foot so hard that he sank right down into the ground out of sight and never troubled the queen again. The end. Now, wasn't that a beautifully illustrated story too? I love that old fairy tale book. Well, friends, I hope that you enjoyed that, and I hope that you have sweet dreams and a great day whenever you're watching, and I can't wait to see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.